Welcome back to Ms. World Traveler in Nashville. I've got my guitar fabric outfit on and I'm ready to learn more about the significant influence country music has had on the city. Telling the stories of country music, preserving the cultural importance, and interpreting its traditions, the Country Music Hall of Fame opened in 1967 with the mission to educate and immerse visitors in the origins and voices, past and present, of people who have contributed to the evolution of this purely American art form. If you want even more in-depth personal history, you can visit the Johnny Cash Museum or the Patsy Cline Museum. And after your museum jaunt, you might like to attend a live performance, which means you'll want something special to wear. Offering vintage Western shirts, embroidery, and handmade original designs, Ellie Monster was founded by Eleanor Lahey in 2009.
Well, Ellie, the first question I have to ask is, where did the name Ellie Monster come from?
It's such a disappointing, uninteresting story.
Darn.
Well, it was actually back when I was much younger. I was working with another girl named Ellie, and she was about this tall. But nobody wanted to say Big Ellie and Little Ellie because that's kind of offensive. So somehow I became Ellie Monster. And then when I started the business, it was in New Orleans. So it made sense to kind of go more with it. I did a lot of skulls and things on shirts back then. So it made sense in that sense.
All right. Well, I see you brought a little bit of the New Orleans to Nashville.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of your embroidery is, I see alligators and, I don't know, crawfish or
shrimp,
right? Shrimp
yeah.
and different things. So how did that whole thing come about when you started putting embroidery on vintage Western shirts?
I wasn't making a lot at the beginning, but I was doing embroidery, like, have a fine arts background, and then started putting embroidery on shirts for myself, like hand embroidered, and then just kind of scaled up along from there. Yeah.
And then why Western shirts? What is it about that sort of, it's a very particular look, isn't it? What about that appealed to you?
Well, because they're the coolest shirts out there. What a silly question. Why Western shirts? No, they're just really fun, and it's a great way to incorporate like whimsical, silly things onto a shirt, and it's still a, you know, aesthetically pleasing. Like there's a lot of tradition there for silliness, but you know, still art.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what brought you then from New Orleans to Nashville?
It was music industry mostly. You know, it made sense, country music and Western shirts.
Right. You don't say.
Right.
So a number of the things that you do have the embroidery, but some things you're also designing from scratch.
Oh yes,
right?
yeah. We've got quite a few different things that we do. A lot of there's the handmade, you know, original designs, which are, you know, pattern, fabric, all those choices made from scratch. Then the embroidered vintage ones.
So what's your favorite thing to do?
Really, really loud, custom handmade shirts. Yeah, like the really over the top ones. Yeah.
So why? Because I mean, is that you? Is that you're just letting your creative juices flow, right?
Yeah. No, it's just I like a shirt that will scream at somebody. You know, it's fun. You know, to have a shirt that makes everybody just stop.
Right. And do you wear stuff like that?
No, very often. No.
You let somebody else do the screaming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where do you find, because these are all vintage pieces other than the ones that you're making, so
right.
Where do you find them?
They are all over the place. It is a constant hunt between myself and some other people that pick them. Yep.
Great. Well, you have quite a range. You know, some are newer. They're not really vintage.
Yep.
They're newer, but gently used.
Yes.
And then some are old. I mean, like for example, I'll just pull this one here. This looks like it's, I don't know, from the 60s or 70s.
Well, see, this one is a totally handmade new shirt.
Is it really?
It's just made out of vintage fabric.
Vintage fabric.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
It just makes everything even that much more confusing.
Right,
Probably like
right.
levels of things that I do. Because a lot of the handmade ones I do use vintage fabrics for.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then you can do sort of today's sizing with it.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? We were talking earlier about that a lot of the vintage fabrics don't have any stretch in them. And we've gotten so used to that, you know, really being able to move your arms comfortably. So you're able to make it for today's size person.
Absolutely.
But with that whole vintage feel to it. Right?
And you know, modern interpretations, and it kind of makes it that much more unique because it's not fabric that you can go out and buy.
True.
You know,
I mean, see yourself walking on the street.
You
right?
can, but it's much harder to find any specific like vintage fabric that you're looking for.
So I have noticed some of your amazing designs up on the back wall. These are all your originals, right?
They are.
Okay. So one of the ones that stuck out to me was the one with the green flowers.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
That one is another vintage fabric, obviously, and then I, you know, took the imagery from the vintage fabric and embroidered it on the front shoulder yokes to make the whole thing just really sing.
Wow. So do you take a picture and put that into the computer and then it does it, or how does that work?
These ones are generally just drawn in chalk on my fabric and then done freehand, because for the one of a kind pieces like that, it's not worth the time that it takes me to draw it and then program it and sew it when I have my machine that I can just freehand it. That's a different look too, which with the older vintage fabrics I think works better with it than the like precise, you know, computerized embroidery.
Right. There's a time and place for that.
Yes.
And then there's a time and place as for the one-off pieces.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And it changes it up for you too.
It does.
Right?
It's a lot of fun to kind of do the one-ups because it sit there and it's just like drawn but with the sewing machine.
Great. So any pieces up here that, you know, speak to you?
Well, that one definitely does. And then this crazy splatter print one with the...
Is it Panthers? Is that what's on there?
Yes, they're Nagel inspired. Because I was going for the whole like 80s thing. And it's like, well, I'll go for that style.
Because it is kind of an 80s fabric. It feels like that, doesn't it?
Right. Absolutely. So I kind of went and did them and just cut out the one and then did the opposite on the other side. So.
And then some with fringe. I'm all about fringe, more fringe.
Yes. Yes, fringe is great. It doesn't usually stay around here too long.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
So some people come in and say, you know, add more, give me more.
Yes.
That would be me.
Yes. It's always fun to have somebody who wants more and more and more. And I'm like, yes, let's put it all on there.
So we just pulled out this mannequin because this is such intricate, beautiful work here. So this is all your design?
Yes, it is.
How long does something like this take?
This one took forever. But kind of started with the inspiration of, I was in Barcelona in the spring. I went to Sagrada Familia and I was like, oh, the glass. So I was like, of course we make this into a Western shirt when I come home. But there's not a way to do that. So it was very much kind of like inventing it as I went. And I went with a reverse applique method. So I had to cut out each one and then went and did satin stitch embroidery as the kind of leading in the glass. But if I did it again, it would be much faster, but I was kind of learning as I went with this one.
Well, it's really quite amazing. And the sides are different, which is great. So that makes it very interesting for you to put all the pieces together and try and fit them and make it work. So is this something that you would actually ever sell?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. There's nothing that's not.
There's nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's really a unique piece. One of the things that I have seen a lot of in your shop is an embroidered possum.
Yes.
So what is the significance behind that?
I'm gonna ask this like 30 times a day. Are
you? Everybody wants to know.
Sometimes I'll say real quick, it's like the Tennessee state bird.
Oh no! and do people like?
I know. Yeah, they're just really popular, and I think there's the country music. George Jones was the possum. I don't think that's the main reason why people like it. But it's a country animal, and he's quirky and weird, and we're in East Nashville, and we're quirky and weird. So, you know.
Speak for yourself. It's really cute. Yeah. And then do you do them in different colors, or do you typically, is this pretty,
I mean,
what you do?
I kind of go with what the shirt, what I think will look good on the shirt as far as like color balance and all that. But it's generally pretty similar.
Well, it's scary and cute all at the same time.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
A dash of humor permeates many of the Ellie Monster designs, and they are just plain fun to wear.
Now, what is a Western shirt without accessories to go with it? Just wait until you see another example of talented artists and designers coming up on the next segment of Ms. World Traveler in Nashville.